Morning.
Morning.
So, Abraham is considered the father of faith. That is how Paul refers to him. But often the whole idea of there was a change in God's relationship with the world through Abraham. And it starts Genesis 12. And it's the call of Abraham to be a representative, a symbol of what it means to be faithful. Faith is one of those aspects, those words that we use a fair amount. We say that we are a people of the faith, or that you should have faith. But sometimes we use the word so much that we start to kind of wonder, what exactly do we mean when we use the word faith? This week I've struggled. And if there was one thing I could change in my life, it would be that I didn't worry so much. But looking back at my life, I see all the things that I've worried about. And this last week, the thing I was worrying about is I mentioned the French test that's coming up. And so it's playing around the back of my mind. And Pam is trying to help me. And so she speaks French to me, and my brain goes, huh? It got so bad that I had a dream that in the dream, we were in a house visiting someone. This person spoke French to Pam, and so Pam was speaking French to this person. And every time I came into the room, the person that only spoke French glared at me, and so I would step out of the room. And then Pam says, no, she wants you here. And I'm like, no, she does not. And I woke up and I was mad at Pam. But the whole stress about it. And then I thought, well, have faith, Gord. And this started the discussion inside my head, because the one part of me says have faith, and the other part of me says, oh yes, because people who have faith, their lives always go perfectly. And I'm like, well, no, that's not what I mean. And then the other part of my brain says, oh, well, what do you mean? If you're going to have faith, does that mean you're going to suddenly learn French? Because I don't think so. And the other part of my brain says, well, but faith is more than just having the world turn out how you want it. And the other part of my brain says, okay, explain it to me. So this is my attempt to talk a little more about what it means to have faith. And to do it, I turn to one of the books that I find quite helpful. It's Luke Johnson's Faith's Freedom, and it's described as classic spirituality. And so I thought, seeing as I need a refresher, I would inflict the refresher upon you as well. And its sermon is a little more lecture-oriented than usual, but like I told the people in prison, too bad, because I need it. So Luke Johnson breaks faith into kind of 7 different dimensions, 7 steps along the way. And I found this helpful to reflect upon what does it mean when I say I have faith. The first step is belief. And the thing about it, you can't have faith in something you don't believe in. But he makes the statement that belief in something beyond us, beyond this world, beyond just our body, it's belief in God changes how we see the world and ourselves. Because if we don't have faith, then we just see the world as a closed system. What there is, there is. There's limited resources. We're always in competition. There's this confined space. But if we believe in a God that is greater than this world, then we know that this world is not defined simply by what we see, feel, and experience. There is something beyond just the physical and the present, and something beyond just our body, our flesh, our bones, our organs. There is something more to us. So belief is that first step of believing that there is something beyond just ourselves. And as he says, it's kind of the easy thing. A lot of people don't believe in that. That's their right. But belief, fine. A lot of people can believe in a God and not have it really change or affect. It changes their worldview, but that can be the extent of it. The second step is where it starts to get hard. Because the second step is, in a sense, trust. That if we believe in this God, then we start to develop a relationship with this God. We believe that this God engages with us. It's more than just the idea of there's a God somewhere out there. It's now that there is a God who is connected to us. And it changes faith from the mind that I can believe to the heart. Or another way of thinking of it, it brings us into relationship. It makes faith a relationship with God. When we can see people that we don't have any relationship with, we see them, we believe they're there, but we have no engagement. As soon as we engage with people, we form a relationship with them. And to do that, for a relationship to work, if it's not a negative relationship, there has to be a level of trust and back and forth. Trusting God means also, in a sense, that we trust ourselves. Because we're trusting ourselves that our belief is real, that there is something to it, and we are going to actually commit part of our life to that. So we start with belief, and then we trust that belief that it is a relationship. Which takes us to the third aspect. And here, it just keeps getting harder. Because the third step is now, the term he uses is obedience. But the third step means, okay, if I trust in this God, then that means I'm going to strive to live my life as is worthy of that relationship. In a way that God has called me. The belief and trust is translated into a way of life. If I believe in this powerful presence that's beyond and is connected to me, then I'm going to try to make that relationship be foundational to how I live my life. I will live as one who trusts in God. And this is, again, belief easy, trust hard, but now it has to become an action. Now we change not just from our heart, but we change it into how we live our lives. The fourth aspect, he says, is hope. And this is a little tricky, because what he's saying, and what that part of my brain was saying, well, just because you have faith doesn't mean everything is going to work. He's not saying that we are hopeful in that we hope the world will always go the way we want it to. But our hope is that as we are now, we see a future that we will step into, not by ourselves, but with God. That we will engage this world, not as it being perfectly laid out for us, but that we are moving forward into it, always in our relationship with God. That we don't move forward by ourselves. That we are not abandoned. That we are not left. That we're not forsaken, that we're not worthless. We have faith in God, that there is something in us, that no matter what faces us, even death, this too shall be overcome. The fifth aspect is fidelity. And this is because faith is not just a one-time thing. We say, some people will say believe and everything is great. But we're constantly called to live this obedience time and time and time again. Every time we form into our relationship with God and we engage the world, we are called to live as people of faith. So that means that every time we encounter a world that pushes against us, we're still supposed to be loving. We're still supposed to be forgiving and grace-filled and kind and compassionate, no matter how many times we have done it. That our faith is an everyday situation. Every day we make this choice. Every day we lean into it. Every day we are called to be God's people. It is to be renewed and repeated continually again and again in our connection and relationship with God, but then also as we live that relationship with the people. It means that just because once I have said that, I am now going to be patient when I drive, I have to now be patient every single time. And which leads me to the sixth one, which is perseverance. Perseverance, it's much like the fifth one in the fidelity sort of thing that we have to do this over. But perseverance is specifically bringing to attention that we will suffer. That we will have times when it's great, and we will have times when our faith seems to flow through our fingers like sand. That just because we step forward and we say, I have faith, and we meet the world with that confidence, we will not necessarily always have that confidence. If you do, fantastic. But there will be times where we struggle. There will be times when it feels like the world is pushing against us. There will be sadness. There will be loss. There will be doubt. There will be despair. And holding on to our faith in those times, that is an aspect. It's not just the kind of continually everyday sort of repeat and rinse. It's the when life seems to take the ground right out from under your feet, to cling to that faith, to hold to it, and to believe in a God who is still with you. One of the hardest aspects for me around this last week, as I struggle with French, I will tell you now, I am fairly confident I will not pass the test. And so I have faith that God will be with me on the other end, and I do not despair that if I fail the test, then everything will fall apart. And so there's that hope I still have. But the perseverance part is that there is a part of me that is so mad at myself, so mad that I will not be able to do this. Because lots of people can do this. And I don't consider myself necessarily, the slowest person in the world, but when it comes to language, it's like walking in a fog. And as you know, I struggle with English. And some people have that natural gift. Caitlin, but or Chloe, languages just flow for some people, but then there's those of us who it's like walking in mud. And I get mad at myself, and I'm like, why can't I do this? And I realize part of the perseverance in faith is believing in that presence of God, and in letting that presence of God give me the idea that even if I can't do this, God is still with me. That even if I can't do this, I am still worthwhile and worthy. That I have to hold on to that, because I'm like, Gord, why can't you? And I'm like, because you can't. And you'll try, and I will continue to try. I'm not giving up. But it's the idea that God is with me even in my failures. That sometimes is the thing that tests our faith the most. That when we set ourselves to do something and we fall short, we say, God is still with me. And so I persevere, because even as I struggle, even as I am suffering, even as I doubt, still I believe that God is with me. And the evidence of God being with me is not me learning French in 24 hours, but is me feeling the presence of God even as I sit in my failure. The last aspect is kind of connected with this. And the last aspect is love. Because if you have faith and it does not lead you to love, then what you have, it might be faith, but it is not faith in God. Because rooted in our relationship with God is love. And without that love, everything else doesn't make sense. We see the world not as we want the world to be, but as the world is. And yet still we see the world with love. Not because the world has done what it's supposed to, or not because the world has blessed us and gifted us. We love the world because God has created the world, and these are God's people. This is God's creation. This is something that God has made. And so because of our love for God, we love this world and strive to do our best in it. And that includes ourselves. We love ourselves, even in the midst of our failures, our failings, because God has created us. And I have faith in God, and so I have faith that this incredible, amazing God can love even me. I have told you before, when I was struggling with entering into the ministry, and in my prayer I said to God, why would you call me? Like, there has to be so many other more capable people than me to call into ministry. And I remember the feeling, the message, the word of God saying to me, what? You don't think I can use even you? I can use anyone. I'm going to prove that I can use anyone by using you. That even in the midst of my failure, I am loved. And so that means that I see a world that is broken, falling apart. I see people that are hurting, make mistakes. I see all of this. And if God can love me, how can I not love them? And so my faith calls me to believe, to trust, to live, to hope, to continue to do this day in, day out, to persevere. But most of all, my faith calls me to love. Our faith is our desire to walk with God, and it starts with a longing for the divine. I believe every one of us has that sense of longing for the presence of God, whether we can give words to it or not, whether we can describe it or not. But our faith is our acting to fill that longing, that desire to be with God. Jeremy was destined to be a painter. Everyone told him this. His grandparents were painters. His parents were painters. They all had art hanging in different galleries. They were well known and renowned. And so when his parents got married from parents of painters and now his parents, everyone said, oh, Jeremy's going to be a painter. And Jeremy wanted to be a painter. His sister, when they said she was going to be a painter, laughed and said, not way. And the only artistic expression she ever had was music, and it was loud, and the best music was even louder. So she walked away. No one said to her, oh no, you have to be a painter, because she didn't want to be a painter. The problem with Jeremy is he wanted to be a painter. He wanted to create like his parents and his grandparents. He wanted to make things that people would look at and go, wow. And so he studied, and he was excellent with technique. If you asked him to copy something, he could copy. He was like a human photocopy machine. You'd show him any painting and he could replicate it. The problem was, in his own eyes, that wasn't a painter. That was just someone who could copy. He wanted to be a painter, and he wanted to create, but he didn't know what to create. And every time he started to think about it, he would get lost. Do I want to do impression? Do I want to do abstract? Do I want to do surrealism? Do I want to do realism? Do I want to do landscapes? Do I want to do fruit bowls? Do I want to do portraits? Do I want to do self-portraits? Do I want to paint just by color and not shape, or just shape? And he would kind of back and forth. There were so many options, and he didn't know what to do. And every time he tried to create something, it was basically just a copy of someone else's. So even though he was excellent with technique, he did not consider himself a painter. And because copying only gets you so far, he took a job in Starbucks, and there he was truly artistic. His foam coffees with the little designs, and people would line up just to he could do portraits with them and everything. And they said, you're an artist. And he would think, no, I'm not. I make coffee. But one day he had the early shift, and he was walking home. It was mid-afternoon, and he was walking back through the city, and he suddenly saw there's kind of a place where there was a bit of cafes and stuff, and he saw somebody had set up a booth with paintings on this little alley. He thought, well, I'd not seen that before. And he went to it, and he saw it was an old woman. And he was like, I like paintings, maybe, I'll be inspired. And he looks, and he sees, and she has this painting, and it's just sketched. But in it, it's half of a human face, and then the universe, kind of like suns, stars, and stuff. And depending on how you look at it, it's either that the universe flows into the face, or the face flows into the universe. And he was like, wow, And it just kind of caught him. And he was like, this is amazing. Where did you come up with this? And she looks at him, she goes, same place I come up with everything, in the dark. He goes, well, what do you mean? She goes, I can't draw in the light. So I go home, I get a piece of paper, I get my pencil, I turn off the lights, and I start to draw. And then when I turn the lights on, I go from there. He's like, really? She goes, yeah. You let your mind and your eyes get in the way, and then the heart doesn't know what it wants to express. You gotta listen to your heart. And I can only do that in the dark, she says. And he was like, well, and he was gonna ask her how much for the painting, but he makes coffee. He couldn't afford that. So he thanked her and he walked home and he got back to his apartment and he sat there and he thought about it. And he tried to do other things, go on the computer and stuff, but he kept thinking about her painting and kept thinking, but that didn't make any sense. And finally it was like 11 p.m. and he has an early shift. He should have gone to bed, but he figures, why not? So he gets a piece of paper, he puts it out there, takes his pencil, and he turns off all the lights and he sits there with his pencil. And he's like, well, this is stupid. This doesn't make any sense. And then he starts to cry. He cries because he doesn't know how to create. He doesn't know what to do. His brain is racing. His eyes finally are quiet because it's dark. And as he starts to cry, his hand starts to move. And he doesn't even remember when it started to move, but it just starts to move. And for about 40 minutes, he just sits there scribbling. And then he turns on the light. And it's not a complete painting, but it's the beginning. And he sees it's a person pushing themselves up from the ground. And the roots are trying to hold, but they're fraying. And he sees a person breaking free. And then he grabs his paints and he starts to fill it in. And he doesn't think about, oh, what color should this be or what. He just starts to do. And he finishes and he calls in and he says, sorry, I can't come into work today, because he has in front of him his first painting. And it's his painting. He created this. And he puts it in his car. He drives to his parents to show them, not because he thinks it's the world's greatest painting. He just wants to show them that he created something. And they see it and they say, no, that's actually fantastic. And they show his grandparents. Even his sister comes and looks and gives it the highest praise she can give any painting. Well, I wouldn't burn it. And so he's like over the moon. He's excited. And then he goes home that night, and finally he's about to sleep, and he hasn't slept for 24 hours, and then he remembers the old lady. I gotta see her tomorrow. So he does his shift, goes and he walks to the alley, and she's not there. And he asks the woman at the cafe that's right beside him, he goes, the woman that sells paintings. She goes, what woman? We let so many things get in our way in our relationship with God. We think about stuff, and it's not that we shouldn't think about it. I have to say that, or else Kaylin would chastise me. But it starts with our heart. It starts with a desire to be in a relationship with God. And that's really the seed for faith to grow. And so I invite you this week to reach out and think this whole period of Lent. This is the second Sunday of Lent. The first Sunday, we talked about temptation. This Sunday, we remember that Lent isn't just about giving up and stuff. It's about growing in our faith. And so I invite you to think about that faith with God. How you have grown in it, where you have struggled, what you can do with it, but most of all, your faith in your heart, that relationship. This week, for our rocks, I invite you, and again, it's the small rocks, the big rocks aren't like this, but take a small rock during the hymn as a reminder of our faith. That sometimes it might seem pretty small or insignificant, but it is solid, and it is something hard and present in our lives. And this week, I would invite you each day to spend some time thinking, what does my faith with God look like? that is something that I truly believe will lead to a blessing for each and every one of us.